Andrew Carnegie went from a penniless boy earning $1.20 a week to the richest man on earth. And then he did something almost no other rich man of his era did. He kept his money, and he used it wisely, right to the very end. Most people don't. And here's the frightening truth that nobody wants to say out loud. It is entirely possible to work hard your whole life, save for decades, and still end up broke after 60. Not because of one giant disaster, but because of a handful of quiet mistakes that drain everything away right when you can least afford it and have the least time to recover. Carnegie understood the principles that protect wealth, not just build it. And if you apply them, you can walk into your 60s and 70s secure instead of scared. So let me show you the 7 mistakes that leave people broke after 60, and exactly what Carnegie understood that keeps that from happening to you. Stay with me to the end, because the 7th is the one that quietly does the most damage of all. The first mistake that leaves people broke after 60 is depending on a single source of income. Most people spend their entire working life relying on one thing, the paycheck. And that's fine while the paycheck flows. But the moment it stops, they're left standing on one leg, and if anything shakes that leg, a shrinking pension, a rising cost, an unexpected expense, the whole thing wobbles toward collapse. Carnegie understood, from the day that very first $10 investment check landed in his hands, that real security never comes from one stream of money. It comes from owning things that pay you. Assets, investments, small pieces of ownership that keep sending money whether you show up or not. He called that first investment the goose that lays the golden eggs, and he spent his life gathering as many geese as he could. The person who arrives at 60 with only one source of income is dangerously exposed. The person who arrives with several, even small ones, has a floor beneath them. So ask yourself honestly, while there's still time, if your main income stopped tomorrow, how many other streams would still be flowing? The second mistake is carrying debt across the line into your 60s. This one is brutal, because debt is heaviest at exactly the moment your income is lightest. When you're still working, a monthly payment is annoying but manageable. But when the paycheck shrinks or stops, that same payment turns into a slow leak in a bucket that's no longer being refilled, draining the fixed savings you have left month after month with nothing coming in to replace it. Carnegie was fierce about this principle in his own way. He understood the difference between debt that builds you and debt that quietly bleeds you. Debt used to buy an asset that pays you can be a tool, but consumer debt, money owed on things that gave you a moment of pleasure and then lost their value, is pure poison in retirement. The people who cross into their 60s owing nothing describe it as one of the smartest moves of their lives, because every dollar of their savings is finally, fully theirs. So if you're still working, one of the most powerful gifts you can give your future self is to walk into 60, owing as little as humanly possible. The third mistake is one people fall into precisely because they want to feel successful. Spending to look wealthy instead of to be wealthy. Even late in life, the temptation is there. The nicer car to show the years were worth something, the upgrades, the appearances. But Carnegie understood a secret that protected his fortune when so many others burned through theirs. Looking rich and being rich are almost always enemies. While the newly wealthy of his time raced to buy mansions and carriages to be seen, he kept his lifestyle modest and put his money to work. Every dollar spent trying to look successful is a dollar that can never keep you secure. And after 60, when there's little time to earn it back, that trade becomes especially dangerous. This isn't about living miserably, it's about being honest with yourself about which purchases are for you and which are just for the eyes of other people. So here's a gentle question. How much of what you spend is actually for your life, and how much is just to be seen? The fourth mistake is letting your money sit completely idle, or worse, not understanding that idle money quietly loses value every single year. Many people, out of fear, pull everything into cash and let it sit, thinking they're being safe. But Carnegie understood that money was never meant to sleep. It was meant to work. Money that just sits there is slowly eaten alive by the rising cost of everything around it. A pile of cash that feels like a lot today buys noticeably less a decade later. Now, this is where care matters most, and I want to be clear. After 60, the goal is not wild risk. Carnegie never gambled. He studied every move before he made it. The point is simply that money needs to keep working intelligently, in a way that fits your age and your needs, rather than sitting frozen out of fear and quietly shrinking. Fear that freezes your money can be just as costly as recklessness that loses it. The wise path is neither. It's putting your money to work in a way that matches where you are in life. The fifth mistake is arriving at retirement with no real plan, just a vague hope that it'll all somehow work out. It's astonishing how many people will spend weeks planning a single vacation, but never sit down and honestly map out the 20 or 30 years their savings actually have to cover. Carnegie was famous for one line that applies perfectly here. Watch the costs, and the profits will take care of themselves. He knew his numbers cold, down to the smallest detail, when his competitors were only guessing, and that discipline is exactly what protected him. The retirees who feel most at peace are almost always the ones who made a clear-eyed plan, what they have, what they need, and how long it must last. Knowing your numbers doesn't make you rich, but it replaces fear with clarity, and clarity is worth an enormous amount when the paychecks stop. Fear almost always lives in the things we refuse to sit down and add up. The sixth mistake is handing your money over to others without ever understanding it yourself. Some people, especially later in life, turn their entire financial world over to someone else, an advisor, a relative, a smooth-talking salesman, and never learn enough to know whether they're being genuinely served or quietly taken advantage of. And too many find out far too late that they were paying too much, or were sold something that helped the seller far more than it helped them. Carnegie built his empire partly by understanding his own business better than anyone around him. He was nobody's fool, and he trusted his own informed judgment. You don't need to become a financial expert, but you do need to understand your own money well enough to ask sharp questions and recognize a bad deal when you see one, because no one on this earth will ever care about your money the way you do. A little bit of your own knowledge is one of the strongest forms of protection there is. And the seventh mistake, the one that quietly does the most damage of all, is believing it's too late to do anything, and so doing nothing. So many people hit 60, look at where they are, feel a wave of regret or fear, and simply freeze. They tell themselves the time to act has passed, that there's no point starting now, and that surrender is the single most expensive decision they ever make, because it guarantees the very outcome they're afraid of. Carnegie's entire life was proof of the opposite truth. He started with nothing and refused, at every stage, to accept that his situation was fixed. It is almost never too late to improve your position, to cut a cost, to clear a debt, to build one more small stream of income, to make a plan, to protect what you have. The years after 60 can still hold decades, and what you do with them starting today genuinely matters. The people who stay secure are the ones who keep taking wise action, at every age, instead of surrendering to the fear that it's over. Because it isn't over, not while you still have breath and choices. So let's bring it all together. 7 mistakes that leave people broke after 60, and the timeless principles that protect against every one of them. Don't lean your whole life on a single income. Gather more than one stream. Don't carry poison debt across the line. Clear it while you can. Don't spend to look rich. Spend to stay secure. Don't let your money freeze out of fear. Keep it working wisely. Don't wander in without a plan. Know your numbers. Don't hand your money to others blindly. Understand it yourself. And above all, don't surrender to the belief that it's too late, because it almost never is. Carnegie proved, with an entire life, that the principles which build wealth are the very same ones that protect it, and that where you are right now matters far less than what you choose to do next. So tell me in the comments, which of these 7 are you going to act on first? And if this gave you something worth holding on to, subscribe and stay close, because that is exactly what this channel is here for. The timeless money wisdom that keeps you secure, at every age, before it's too late to use it.